Hello, welcome to Japan Korea MINIPEDIA. This is the very first session of the series, which I intend to carry on for a long time. I'm Daniel Rowe, and I'm going to upload this show on Tuesday and Friday every week. So if I succeed, I shall have more than 100 shows per year. So your continued support and participation will be very much appreciated. Today I'd like to talk about geopolitics. Well, geopolitics is a very familiar term which is used almost every day these days. Geopolitics in China, Japan, and Korea, in the Chinese character sphere, we have these three word with three Chinese characters: Qi, earth; 정, politics; and hak, or discipline. So it is 지세가고 in Japanese and 지정학 in Korean. Let's take a look at some typical definitions. First one by Wikipedia says it is the study of the human and physical effects of geography on politics and international relations. On the other hand, the Encyclopedia Britannica says it is the analysis of the geographic influences on a power relationship in international relations. This is slightly more driven to international political implication. Now, I'd like to take a look at the two maps. One on the left shows the entire Western Pacific and Eurasian continent. In the middle, we have a Korean Peninsula, and then we have a Japanese archipelago on the right. Well, first thing is that they are relatively small countries compared to, Russia and China and Australia and other countries. And then Korean Peninsula is now divided into North and South Korea. So it is now really the front line of, remaining Cold War competition. On the other hand, Japanese archipelago is a long, stretched line of islands consisting of thousands of islands, where four major islands are important ones. And on the right side, we have the map of Quad, which is a very recent thing initiated by the US. There is, some form of alliance on the building today with the USA, Australia, India, and Japan. I mean, Japan is a very, faithful ally of USA since the World War II. But on the other hand, even though South Korea and USA are really important allies, Korea is still considering whether to or not to participate in this Quad because of Chinese influence. Korea's relation with China is very important in many senses. So Korea can make a very light decision on this Quad thing, which actually reflects the agony of South Korea's choice in strategic decision making, which we'll discuss a lot from now. Now let's take a look at geopolitical implications of the Korean Peninsula. I want you to look at the map on the left. Is a peninsula. Peninsula means almost island. It's neither island nor continent, but it is actually attached to a huge Eurasian continent. And so it is, in a sense, a nexus between continental and oceanic powers. And another really important point is that Korean Peninsula can be said to be the last remaining Cold War structure of the post-war period. North and South Korea, about 27 million in North Korea, about 50 million in South Korea, are exactly the homogeneous same nation. But today they are divided into two countries and maintain a most severe competition and conflict of socialism and capitalism, which is a very sad story for Koreans. And given the small size, given the location of being stuck between huge countries, Korean regimes in Korea, whether it is north or south, have been enjoying very limited freedom in choice making with foreign relations. They should be allied to huge countries, and representing those two camps, two homogeneous nations must confront with the line just in between, in the middle of the Korean Peninsula. Now, take a look at this Japanese archipelago. Your first impression, I think, is that Japanese archipelago is a long, stretched line of islands where we have at the top of the huge Hokkaido island. Then we have a Honshu main island. So there are 4 major islands, but surrounded by thousands of islands. So Japan has a very, in a sense, a unique geographical, status and the composition. But in a broader perspective, Japanese archipelago forms a dividing line today between the continental Eurasian, Russian and Chinese civilization and oceanic civilization represented by the United States. So in a sense, Japanese regime has been, in a sense, enjoying freedom of making strategic choice, because it can maintain the Korean Peninsula at arm's length. Arm's length being, if you have something at arm's length, you can take it or leave it, let it go. So we have the freedom of maintaining or severing the relationship. So this physical condition of Japan has been, I think, the source of conflicts in the past with Korean Peninsula and the Eurasian continent countries such as China and also Taiwan. And today, the conflicts with continental powers, China and Russia, are going on. But it's particularly Japan had a war with Russia in 1904 through 1905. Also, it has waged war with China in 1937, Russo-Chinese, Sino-Japanese War, and ruled China, huge Chinese continent, until 1945. So Japan has a very unique history of conflicts with huge countries in Eurasian continent. And also, Japan has been maintaining a very complex history with the Korean Peninsula. Japanese imperial power ruled Korean Peninsula for 35 years from 1910 to 45. And since then, today, there are some important conflicts going on between Japan and Koreas, both North and South Koreas, with regard to historical disputes, which we'll talk about later. So Japanese archipelago and Korean Peninsula make some really striking contrast. First of all, Korean Peninsula is a really northern point of continent and ocean. So it can be the really link between oceanic powers and continental powers in the past. And today, Korean Peninsula forms the front line between socialism and capitalism, and also the competition between US and China today. And again, sadly enough, Cold War is still remaining in Korea, where North and South Korea have a huge military buildup. So logically, you know, military confrontation can break out anytime between the North and South Koreas, consisting of homogeneous peoples. On the other hand, Japanese archipelago forms a sort of dividing line between continental and oceanic powers. So because of that condition, Japan has been, in a sense, enjoying a freedom of interfering with the continent, or they can actually, withdraw by choice. So even though not, geographically, Japanese archipelago has very difficult elements such as typhoon and earthquake, etc. But when it comes to international politics, Japan has been enjoying sort of freedom in maintaining relations with Eurasian countries and the Korean Peninsula. But still today, Japan is a neutral country. It's neither socialist nor, neither communist, and nor very staunch anti-communist countries. So it has a very flexible position, wider choices in making foreign relations with many countries in the globe. Well, I'd like to make some summary statements of the talk today. First one is the Korean Peninsula forms the nexus between continental and oceanic powers. Such an environment has resulted in the division of the Korean Peninsula today. Now, the Japanese archipelago forms a borderline between continental and oceanic civilization and has been engaged in conflicts with Russia and China. The third point is the Korean Peninsula and the Japanese archipelago have been maintaining a complex history which continues even today. Well, this is for today. Your support will be very much appreciated. And if you have any questions or points to make, feel free to contact me at the following email address. Thank you very much.